Nehemiah goes on to say, I confessed, in Nehemiah 1:6. And then he adds, we have acted very wickedly toward you, God. We have not obeyed the commands, Nehemiah 1:7. Are you the cause of a disaster in your life, or do you feel like you are the victim of the disaster? This is an interesting question. Either way, when we act responsibly, we can make some important changes that have been revealed by our disaster and come through it as a better person by gaining valuable life lessons. Most of us can remember where we were on September 11, 2001. The terrorist attack of 9/11 impacted all of us. This disaster brought with it a whole new level of fear for Americans. But it also brought with it changes that have been good for the security of our country. If you've flown lately, the precautions taken in getting through security are constant reminders. Here's something else that's interesting that is related to how the terrorist attacks affected us. A George Barna study provides observations from data gathered in a report 5 years after 9/11. Here's what they say. The study shows that despite an intense surge of religious activity and expression in weeks immediately following 9/11, the faith of Americans is virtually indistinguishable today compared to pre-attack conditions. The Barna study goes on to say, in the immediate aftermath of the attacks, half of all Americans said that their faith helped them cope with the shock and uncertainty. The change most widely reported was a significant spike in church attendance, with some churches experiencing more than double the normal crowd on the Sunday after the shocking event. However, by the time of January 2002, church-going was back to pre-attack levels and has remained consistent in the 5 years since. Other religious behaviors, if they were affected at all, found equilibrium even more quickly. As of October 2001, Americans engaged in Bible reading and prayer. There was no difference than pre-attack levels and has essentially been consistent from that point on. The director of the study, David Kinnaman, said, many Christian leaders predicted that terrorism on U.S. soil would catalyze a spiritual awakening in the country. The first few weeks were promising, but people quickly returned to their faith-as-usual lives. Within a month, most of their spiritual fervor was gone. Within 90 days, surprisingly few people were pursuing important questions about faith and spirituality. As unbelievable as this may seem, even a major catastrophe like the terrorist attack of the Twin Towers in the Pentagon has not changed most American spirituality. It seems as though the response was to restore continuity and comfort as quickly as possible without making an effort to grow morally or spiritually. Seeking to find a comfortable place again seems to be a response to a disaster. Let me ask you a direct question. Would it be worth it to take an alternative route through the crisis and let the disaster be used for God's perfecting work in you? For us, the decision had already been made. We were going through the storm. Monday, August 29, 2005 was a long, stressful day. It wasn't until 5 p.m. that we opened the front door of our house and ventured outside. What we saw was unbelievable. Trees were fallen everywhere. Roofs were peeled back. A home nearby was leveled by a tornado. Although our house had roof damage and a gable had been blown out, exposing our attic, the structure was still standing and our house was livable. We were so thankful to be alive, but had no idea at the time the extent of the devastation along the Mississippi Gulf Coast. You've survived your disaster, so what's next? If you have chosen to run to and not from God, what does He have to say? Does God have a plan in mind? Now is the time to consider what might be God's idea for you as a result of your disaster. We'll consider more about this as we begin the next chapter.